Museums are repositories where we store and display those things most important to our culture and ourselves. But too often they're seen as intimidating and unwelcoming, the kind of place you probably shouldn't venture without a proper degree. The newly renovated and expanded University of Michigan Museum of Art uses stunning design, new technology, and a reinterpretation and recontextualization of display to create a space that fosters interdisciplinary exchanges and extends an open invitation to students and the community to come on in. Come on, let's go take a look. Museum Director James Stewart gave me a preview of a self-referential opening exhibit about, appropriately enough, museum design. The past few decades have been a museum building boom, and in tough economic times, they may be a more important investment than ever. In this new economic time, it seems that creativity is becoming more desirable in the job market.
We hear all the time, including from the for-profit sector, that businesses find their workers to be better producers and more creative problem solvers when they have experiences of the arts. The other point of this, of course, is that cultural organizations are themselves directly contributing to the economy. This building project, by virtue of having been largely funded with private support, itself has injected into the economy and will continue to do so. Visitors who come to the museum, who then dine in our nearby restaurants. We know that cultural institutions are important in helping recruit and retain the best talent for our community, and that certainly includes the best and brightest students looking at higher education.
So the museum can really serve as a portal in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely. I would make the argument that the arts are absolutely as much a part of our nation's economic vitality as any other sector.
The University of Michigan has been collecting art since the 1850s and has one of the strongest university art collections in the nation. But more people have walked past the building, constructed in 1910, than have entered. This top-to-bottom reimagining hopes to draw those would-be passersby into a brand-new UMA experience.
A lot of this business about reinventing ourselves and doing that both architecturally and programmatically has been from a desire to create a museum that would really embrace everyone. We were doing very well, I think, in serving our more expert students, those who perhaps come to the university to study art and art history, but that we weren't doing so well at capturing, let's say, the undergraduate engineering freshman. It was coming in and discovering what would it take to get the most indifferent person to think of art as a part of their normal adult experience.
So how do you find that out? If you are trying to serve people who don't necessarily have a great deal of experience with museums, how do you find out what they want, what would bring them into the door?
Well, you ask them is the obvious answer. We did a substantial number of focus groups and surveys of everybody from the most experienced end of the spectrum to people who had perhaps never even known there was an art museum in Ann Arbor or at the university.
There were people who didn't know there was a museum.
And sadly, some of them used to pass by our doorstep on State Street.
Just out of curiosity, what did you think this building was?
We heard everything from a faculty club to I don't know what that is. And it's not made easier by the fact that the words that appear over our door say Alumni Memorial Hall. That doesn't signal necessarily that it has a visual arts purpose. And that certainly is at the core of our rethinking with the architecture of creating a new building that has all this glass that was literally intended to be a kind of lantern after dark so that anyone passing by would be able to glimpse inside and think, that looks welcoming, that looks interesting, let me go discover what that's about. The fact that we're a free admission museum makes that even easier because there's really no obstacle to coming in, even if it's only for 5 minutes. And it's about trying to find that balance between caring for and honoring our collections, which is perhaps at the core of our mission, but also of finding a dialogue between our collections and our audiences.
James, best of luck with the reopening. Thank you so much for spending this time with us and for giving us a sneak peek into what you're reimagining for the museum.
It's our pleasure.
So how do you move from vision to reality? We take UMA for a test drive after the break. Welcome back. A moment ago, University of Michigan Museum of Art Director James Stewart communicated the vision that guided UMA's relaunch. To see how those concepts are being put into practice, I spent some time with the museum's Director of Education, Ruth Slavin. So there's been a lot of new scholarship on reconceptualizing art, and the museum applies sort of a three-label approach to the pieces. Explain that ideology to me.
This work of art here is a great example because it will have all three layers of interpretation that we're trying to provide. The first level that's important to us is a basic interpretive label. People want to know, what is it? When is it from? Where is it from? What was it used for? The next thing is kind of a storytelling mode. We have gallery cards called backstories, and they're the kind of story that a friend, but also a scholar, would tell you if they were with you in the gallery. And they would say, you know, you may not be interested in this, but I'd like to tell you a great story about that. Those are cards with pictures and words. And the third level is interactive and multimedia, and that's found on our dialogue table downstairs in the vertical gallery, which is open much longer than the gallery hours. This work is particularly enigmatic because you can see it has 5 little openings or 4 little spouts around the main spout. It's kind of impractical.
Right.
What was its purpose?
Right.
And so we had a young filmmaker named Sultan as one of our commentators and explorers for the gallery.
I think when you go into a museum, you're prepared to look at paintings and, you know, and sculptures and sort of the traditional artistic items. And so when I posed the question, it was sort of out of shock of seeing these things that I felt like didn't fit.
His question was, did they know they were making art? When they made this work of art, it is a great question. And you see, it's an ordinary question, but it's a question that allows us to bridge from a question that you or I might have in the gallery to what scholars know.
This vessel is made up of 5 urns called hu that have been joined together. It wouldn't have been considered a work of art at the time of its creation.
We taped him ruminating about what he feels and thinks about when he goes to a museum, and then we taped scholars answering his questions.
The 3-layer approach is designed to draw people into a deeper relationship with the objects in the museum. The same strategy and level of thought was put into the programming and design of the museum itself.
When you go by the front of the museum, you see this kind of glass enclosure where the difference between the inside and the outside almost dissolves. And that's very intentional, and that's a place where we're going to put cutting-edge, contemporary art to invite people to look in, to come in, get involved with the museum. And right behind that is our commons area where you can sit and have a cup of coffee and do Wi-Fi, and there's a lot of little places tucked in around the museum where you can just sit and study or talk to a friend.
Come and look at the art, but just be in the space.
Exactly.
You really want people to interact with what you have here.
We really do. We really want to have a lot of points of contact. We want to create a lot of points of contact. Everything from you come to a concert or a film in the new auditorium, you sit in the commons and do your email. You are in the galleries, you are enjoying our new interpretive tools. You're in open storage, you're here for a class, you're here for a party. You know, if you think about your best friends, they're people you do a lot of things with. You don't just do one thing. We want to be that kind of institution that really has multiple kinds of relationships with people and invites people to create their own relationships with the art and with the museum.
Ruth, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.